They had set up nearly all the first bars and clubs in the East, and established in the process the ethos of the fledgling new society being built almost from scratch after the fall of the Berlin Wall. This kaleidoscopic world I had fallen in love with was their world, their creation. At the time I had no idea I would eventually become a writer, but to an American reflexively skeptical toward the Reagan mythology surrounding the end of the Cold War, the story of East German punk seemed unbelievably important. Perhaps more important than even the participants themselves realized. Here were the people who had actually fought and sacrificed to bring down the Berlin Wall. My initial belief in the importance of this story was reinforced after I returned to the US and recognized an ominous echo in developments in my own country. Mass surveillance on a scale the Stasi could only have dreamed about. The widespread use of insidiously pliable charges like failure to comply with a lawful order to make arbitrary arrests. The struggle of protest movements such as Occupy, Black Lives Matter, and #NoDAPL in the face of a complacent or even hostile society. In the West, we tend to harbour smug, simplistic views of the old Soviet bloc, and to dismiss out of hand comparisons of our system to authoritarian regimes like the one in East Germany. It's worth noting, however, that East German police, unlike our own, could not murder people in the street with impunity. Even today, we trot out images of foreign police brutalizing protesters in other countries to intimate the illegitimacy of governments in places like Egypt, Turkey, or Ukraine. But we rarely look in the mirror. Our current inability to control state-sanctioned violence could not be more clear, even if white America goes to great pains not to acknowledge it. But perhaps even in an era when local American police departments deploy military equipment against protesters, use surveillance aircraft and lethal drones, and maintain CIA-style black sites, there is still hope. Perhaps this story, about a bunch of unarmed, unruly teens and the cracks they managed to kick in the seemingly unbreakable system of repression in East Germany, is even more important now than when it first captured my attention. Back then I was fascinated to get to know people who had helped resist and eventually cast off the dictatorship. But I never imagined their stories might be of personal use to me and my fellow citizens in the land of the free. East German punks used to spray paint the phrase, "Stirb nicht im Warteraum der Zukunft." Don't die in the waiting room of the future, on walls in Berlin. It wasn't about self-preservation. It was an indictment of complacency. It was a battle cry. Create your own world, your own reality. DIY. Revolution. Introduction. By the late 1970s, the Berlin Wall, actually two walls with a notorious death strip between them, had been up for little more than 15 years, but it had already become a fact of life. A generation had grown up with it. Its history and the details of its construction barely mattered anymore. It was a booby-trapped, concrete reality, the physical embodiment of a division of the world that felt as if it could go on forever. The young on either side accepted the Berlin Wall as permanent. It had always been there and probably always would be. Every aspect of life on the east side of the wall was hyper-politicized, and nothing more so than popular culture. Already in 1945, several years before the official founding of East and West Germany as countries, American military observers were struck by the speed with which the Soviet Union fostered a renewed cultural life in the East after World War II. The Soviets did this not only because of its potential pacifying effects on the populace, but, as American officials remarked, because they seemed to believe in the inherently edifying qualities of cultural institutions. A dozen theatres, 2 opera companies, 5 major orchestras, and countless cabarets and smaller music ensembles were established in the Soviet zone.